Oh, Ruby, you're getting so big. Ruby is getting fine and big, and she doesn't realize how big she is. And she's made for milk. That's it. So, good morning, everybody. A beautiful morning here. Lots to get done. A bit of, I don't know what you'd say, housekeeping. Yeah. There we go. There's Ruby. There's Ruby. I think I'll have to put on my hood because she kind of jumps on the back of my neck. And 'tis a beautiful day. 'Tis a fine and sunny day. Yes, that's right. There's little Mel. Where are they? You can see. They're all coming around anyway. So I hope everybody's well and had a good week. Who's that now? Twink is coming down. Oh, Ruby. I'll have to hide my hair from Ruby, I think. We'll have to get the hairband. After my lovely haircut and everything. Hello, Twink. Can we go this way? There's Twink. That's it. So yes, a lot of you guys are going to have to go now because it's actually, you're putting everything under pressure. So that's one of my jobs today, is to put a few ads up in Dundee. And you can get beautiful new homes. How about that? Yeah? Yeah, would you like that? Would you like to find another new home? Another beautiful new home? I think so. I think a lot of you would. There's Max as well. Because, yeah, you can see everything's under pressure now. The fencing, the grass, the milking, the feed, just, you need to move on. And you know what's happening is the mothers are getting kind of pushed out. So that's it. So there's ads going up today, and that's the end of it. So we had a good week. It's a bank holiday. Ruby, I want a helmet for Ruby, I'd say. Are you coming? Are you gonna? You get. The hair is gone now, so she's after the glasses. Ruby, I can't have a bottle every day for you. Oh my! Look at this. I'm like an activity centre. Now, calm down, everyone. They're all queuing up. Who's that now? That's Maxie there. So, do you know what's amazing? On the road down now, there's none here to be seen. But that's great. That's the great thing about nature and biodiversity and stuff like that. Each field, each little section is so different, do you know? And this morning, because it's been raining the last couple of days, and I've been trying to get everything finished in my paperwork, which Tuesday is the deadline, and I'm confident I'm nearly there. Foxgloves have just appeared. They're all over the place. Well, not here, but above along the public road and other fields up there. It's just come alive with foxgloves. Now, they've been growing all the time, but they've just bloomed. It's just like a... And it's lovely to see them, and they are lovely. I know people are, there'll be fucking, oh, excuse my language, there'll be about 500 people now saying, they're dangerous, they'll kill you, they're poison. But I do think you have to eat about, I don't know, a ton weight of them or 40 of them or something like that before they have an effect on your heart. They do have an effect on your heart, but I don't think, like, just by looking at them, you're going to get a heart attack, you know. And I think people are a bit, it's amazing how people will take all kinds of drugs, prescribed and non-prescribed, but to look at a foxglove, it's like, it's poison, it'll kill you. You know, I don't think it's like that. You know, hawthorn is very good for the heart as well. And the berries, there's something about the berries and the heart and the blood, I think, as well. But the foxgloves, yeah, the fairy fingers that we used to call them, we used to have such fun. Wearing them on our fingers, and that they were going to give us magic, and the fairies would wear them as hats. But they're so beautiful, the foxgloves, the flowers, because you have those little black dots with white outline inside. They're so kind of precious. Look at you, everybody. They're all relaxing there. I think the hair monster is gone. They're all picking at me. So the story this morning is a version, because again, reading it, I was like, that's not right. But it's not that it's not right, it's different to the one we normally know. And some people get very irate about this. Was it Patrick's Day that I was talking about, the Salmon of Knowledge, and I got the name wrong. I used a different name. Jeez, there was one on to me. It was like as if I'd I don't know, as if I'd shot somebody. So this is another story, another telling of the birth of Finn McCool, and a lot of the life story of Finn McCool. And it's a very interesting one because it's whoever wrote it. I must check again. There's lots of different stories brought into it, and motifs, as we call them, little different kind of pieces of a story that would be taken from one story and put into another. And a lot of stories are like that, you know, kind of like, I'm trying to think now. So anyway, this all started with a warrior called Cúl Mac Art, Cúl, the son of Art. And there was a prophecy given to him when he was born that the day he would marry, the next battle he fought, he would die. So he never really married. He never had much to do with women because he'd said if he did marry, he would die. So that wouldn't be very good. So he kept away from women as much as he could. He didn't really have any dealings with them at all. Oh, look who's here now. Who sees that my hair is here? Yes. Now, won't you have a lovely time somewhere? You will. Saoirse. Saoirse's only looking in now. Oh, look at this. Bliss. Bliss is tough out. So, Cúl Mac Art couldn't marry a woman. If he did, he would die in the next battle he fought after getting married. And there was a Princess Emer, and the prophecy was told about her that her son would take the kingdom from her father. So the king's grandson would take the kingdom off him. So the king was very upset and he was very fearful. So he forbade his daughter from seeing anybody. Jeez, Bliss is loved out. you're just like, yeah. So, so you had Cúl Mac Art, who didn't want really to go with women because of he would die. And you had Emer, who was forbidden to go with men because her son would take over her father's kingdom. And of course, between the jigs and the reels, one day, Emer went to the lake to go swimming. And if she did, who was riding past on his horse? Only Cúl Mac Art. And their eyes met, and that was it. It was love at first sight. They had a relationship. Cúl found the woman that he really didn't care about if he lived or died the next day, because to marry her would be so wonderful. And she didn't care about her father's kingdom or anything like that. She fell in love with Cúl. And you know, when you fall in love, nothing really matters, do you know, as they say. And so they went on anyway, and they got married. And they had a bit of time together, and then there was a battle called, and Cúl Mac Art had to go. So he went to visit his mother, and he told her everything. And he told her that he was with the king's daughter. He's probably dying in this battle if the prophecy comes true. But that if Emer had a son, his mother was to take that son away and look after him, because the king would undoubtedly try and kill him. So Cúl Mac Art went off to the battle. Cúl Mac Art got killed just like the prophecy said. And Emer had a little boy just like Cúl Mac Art said. And that was all right. The old lady, the king was frustrated when he heard that Emer had a little boy. He didn't know who the father was, but he said, throw it out the window into the lake and let it sink to the bottom, because that Bain is not going to take my kingdom. Nobody is going to take my kingdom. And like a lot of people, I suppose he didn't realise that death was on his doorstep every day. So he said, nobody is going to take my kingdom. And they threw the baby out into the loch, but the old lady was watching at the edge of the lake. And next thing, the baby rose out, came to the top, started floating, and what did it have in its hand? Only a salmon. And when he got to the old lady hopped into the lake and she got him out, and the salmon turned into a pup. And that pup was with Finn McCool for the rest of his life. So the old lady, the baby, and the pup went off, and they went out into a forest. And while they were heading off into the forest, the king heard that the baby floated, and some old lady took him. He had no idea who the old lady was. So he said, right. He said, right, I want to kill all the babies born this year. Just any male babies, kill them off. And next year as well, anyone's born, so to make sure that my grandson doesn't survive. So the soldiers went off killing the poor babies, and there was terrible ruckus around the kingdom. But the old lady had got into a half-rotten oak tree, and she kept picking and picking and picking and picking and picking until she made a small little room for herself and the baby and the pup inside in the oak tree. And they were able to hobble in and hobble out and get a little bit of food from themselves from the forest, and everything was great. And after 5 years, she came out for the first time, and she had the baby with her, and she said she better teach the baby to walk now. So she took the baby to a hill, and she had a little stick, and she said, you walk now and I'll walk behind you, and if I can get close, I'll give you a swipe of the stick. It wasn't a stick now, it was more like a bamboo or a reed, I suppose. And I'll walk ahead on the way up, and if you can strike me, and we'll have a game like that. So the first time down, the old lady was winning mad. She was switching the child with the switch every couple of minutes. And on the way up, he couldn't get at her at all. But by the second time, she found it harder to catch him. She got him a couple of times. And on the way up, he caught her a few times. But then on the way down the third time, she was getting less and less, and he was getting more and more. That is right. Will you all settle down for the story now? Would you ever settle down? I suppose I'm too excited telling it. So, by the end of it, she could hardly hit him, and he was hitting her like mad. And she said, fair play to you. You can walk. We'll go into a hide again because the king still might be looking for us. So they went back into the oak tree for another 10 years, and they came out. And there was a hurling match going on, and the king, who was a bit older now at this stage, his people were fighting another king's people. And they were totally level, the talents were level, the scores were level. There was no way that one team was better than the other. They were completely equal. Until the grandmother and the child came along, or the 15-year-old now as he was, and she said, play for the other king's team. And he hopped into the field, and you must remember rugby matches wasn't so organised as it was now. You might have 40 or 50 for one side on a team and a 40-50 on the other side, and they all leathering away, and there was only one sliotar and two goals, but still there was a crowd trying to push the ball and get it in and stuff like that. So they went at that anyway, and the boy went into play, and Jesus, didn't he start scoring well for the other king? And if he did, the other king was winning. His own grandfather got very upset, and he won the match for the other king. Look at Bliss here, and she's driving me mad, and she pulling at this, and she pulling at that. And who's pulling at me here? Max. So that was all right. The king, his grandfather, said, seize that young man, and don't let him leave that field until I have something to do with him. But the grandmother snuck up, and she said, put on your hood, because he had a kind of a very blondie, he had a very blondie head. So he put on his hood, and she said, duck down now. And he ducked down, and as she did, she drew a clout on some young fella behind him. And the fella that got the clout then clouted somebody else, and the other fella drew a clout, and they all started clouting, and the old lady and the grandson and the pup snuck away again. And if they did, the king shouted out, where's that Finn McCool? Where's that Finn with the white head? Because cool means white head as well, apparently. So that's how Finn McCool got his name. So the old lady said to Finn, now we have to rush away. We have to, because the king knows he'll be after us now. He'll want to know who you are and everything like that. And if he finds out, that'll be the end of you, because he doesn't want you around at all. So that was all right. They headed off, and the old lady felt there was somebody after them. And she said, look now with your fine young eyes and see what you can see after us. And he said, there's a warrior on a white horse after us. She said, we're all right. The white horse has no endurance. Now, this is a fascinating thing to say in a story, or to read in a story, because my dad always had it, especially about horses, because that was his, if you think of me and goats, you think of my father and horses. But he always said that a white horse would never win a race. And he never had great trucking with white animals. He always said they were a bit cold for this weather. And that's why I'm not mad about the Saanen breed. No, I'm not. It's not that I hate them or anything, but I'd be more inclined for the British Alpines, the blacker colour, or the Tottenbergs, the brown, whereas the Saanen white, they're a bit too weak for this weather. It's just that's what I hear. So it was great to read it in the story as well. It was great to read it in the story as well, that the white horse has no endurance. We're all right. So they kept running anyway. And then she said, look back again. I feel we're in pursuit. And he said, there's a man on a brown horse. Oh, she said, don't worry at all. There's not a brown horse that isn't fierce giddy altogether. We'll be fine out. And then she felt she was in pursuit again, and she said to the Finn McCool, she said, now, what do you see now? And he said, there's a warrior coming on a black horse, and 'tis fierce fast. Well, she said, this is where we have to make our plan, because he will catch up with us. And there was a lot of old bogs around there, a lot of all kind of swamps, kind of quicksandy type things. And she said, there's only one thing for it now. One of us has to die here, and it won't be you, because you have your life to live. And I promised your father that I would look after you. So she threw herself into the swamp, and she told Finn McCool and the hound, Bran he was called, to go off and keep running and get away. So when the man on the black horse caught up to the old lady, he said, where's Finn McCool? Where's the youngster? Oh, she said, he's inside here in the bog, and she was lashing around trying to catch him. And she said, I can't find him. And of course your man believed her anyway. So he said, I can't get the young fella's head, but the old lady's head might do for the king to see that I killed one of them anyway. So he took the head off the old lady, and he took it back to the king. And the king was happy enough that youngster was killed. Now, he had no idea that the youngster was his grandson yet. So that went off anyway. And poor Finn McCool was out. He was only 15, and he was out on his own with his little puppy. Grover's over in her play date. She's doing fine. So that was all right. Everything was grand. Yes. So he went off anyway, and he didn't know what to do now. He missed his grandmother, and she was a very wise woman, and he didn't really have any wisdom yet. So he found a cave, and there was a crowd, a herd of old goats inside there. We got the goats into the story. And I don't know, was there any as cheeky as you, Bliss? I don't know, was there any as cheeky as you in there? So that was all right. The goats were there, and he fell asleep, and he'd Bran in with him as well. Next thing, this huge big figure, this huge big figure came to the mouth of the cave. And he said, I smell a man in there. And it was a big giant, and he only had one eye in the middle of his forehead. A cyclops, another crowd had called him. So the giant came in, and he lit a fire, and he said, he saw Finn anyway, and he said, look, give me a hand here. Cook this salmon for me. And he threw this big fish down on the ground. Poor old Finn McCool had a hard time trying to lift the salmon. It was so big. And he said, whatever you do, don't touch it, don't eat it, don't taste it. I'm so wrecked. I've been 3 years after this salmon, and now you'll cook it for me while I rest. And the giant fell asleep, and every time he went, he sucked Finn McCool, Bran, and all the goats across the cave, and then he'd go, he'd blow him across again, and then bliss at my ear. And he was like that, and poor Finn McCool was trying to cook the salmon, and eventually he got the fire going, and he got the salmon cooking, and everything was great, but there was an old blister on the salmon, and didn't Finn McCool put his thumb on the blister to soften it out, and it was very hot, and he started sucking his thumb, and if he did, he got all the knowledge in the world. Of course, it was the salmon of knowledge. And don't worry, it's just a different version before you get your underwear in a twist. It's just a different version. So he had all the knowledge of the world, and the giant woke up and he said, I can feel it. You've taken the knowledge out of the fish and you have it for yourself. You betrayed me. I'll tear you in 2 pieces and I'll tie him in a knot. And he went after Finn McCool, and Finn McCool didn't know what to do. And he started sucking his thumb, and he got the knowledge of how to sort out the giant. And he cut the spit that the salmon was on, and he plunged it into the giant's eye. The giant hopped up and he couldn't see anything. But he said, and he gave one jump to the edge of the cave, and he said, nobody's getting out here until I let them out, or I kill them. So, with that, with all the goats, didn't Finn hop under one of them, and he got Bran to go under another one of them, and he shoved the goats out in a hurry, and the giant stopped them. Come on, where are y'all now for the crack? And the blind giant put his hand on their backs, and he couldn't feel anything, and didn't Finn McCool and Bran get out. And now they had the knowledge, and they were very excited, and they headed off for another adventure along the way. Who's up there now? But didn't the giant call after him, and he said, I have a present for you. Finn McCool said, a present? But he was trying to kill me a minute ago. Oh, he said, no, I have a present here. And he threw a ring out and he said, put it on and see what it does. And Finn McCool, God help us, even with the wisdom in his thumb, he was innocent as well, you see. You can have all the wisdom in the world and you'd still trust a creator. And he put the ring on, and then the giant said, where are you? And the ring said, I'm on Finn McCool's finger. Well, the giant jumped to where the ring spoke, and he just missed Finn McCool by that much. And Finn started running, and then the giant would go, where are you? And the ring would go, I'm in Finn McCool's finger. And the giant would take one jump and land where the ring had spoken. And Finn McCool said, I'll never get out of this. He's going to get me. He's going to get me. And Bran said, why don't you suck your thumb and see what to do? So Finn McCool started sucking his thumb, and there was only one thing to do, and he started biting his finger that the ring was on. And he bit in. His teeth were better than mine anyway. And he started biting in and biting in and biting in. And didn't he gnaw off the finger with the ring? And he threw it into one of the old bogs that the old lady was lost in. And the giant said, where are you? And the ring said, I'm on Finn McCool's finger. And if he did, the giant jumped into the bog and was totally slopped down. He was gone, and he started sinking and sinking, and that was the end of the giant. Well, Finn McCool and Bran kept walking now, and his finger was kind of sore, but they kept walking, and they came to this huge, big, thick forest. And if they did, in that forest, there was a crowd building. And he said, who are you building for? Oh, we're building a castle for the king, but there's some terrible trouble going on here. Whatever we build during the day is destroyed and burnt at night. And we're trying to do it, and there's people come to mine the castle, and the king has now promised his daughter in marriage. This is a different king now to your man's grandfather. My daughter in marriage to anybody who can save the castle and let it be built. Oh, Finn McCool said, I'll try my best at that. And the foreman said, oh, be very careful now. A lot of people have come and they've lost their lives. And he said, no, I'll try, because if they can't protect it, if the castle gets burnt down, those people get killed. So Finn McCool said, no, I'll try it out now. I'll see how it's going. Give me a chance. And what was it? But there was a witch who believed she owned the wood, and she probably did. And she had 3 sons, and they were there, and she used to get them by night to go over and burn and destroy whatever building was done that day. So that night anyway, the old witch got her youngest son, and he had the head of a goat. I'd say he had the head of you, Bliss. I'd say he was a tough character. Oh, what about who's up here now? Is that Harold? No, it's Lamal, I'd say. Yeah, they're all mad for the hood. I'll have to stop wearing green and wear some other colour, I think. So your man was there, and he was burning and destroying the castle, and Finn McCool said, hold, tough man, what are you doing with the head and the goat on you? And he told him, and he said, this is my mother's forest, and there'll be no castle built here. And they started fighting and tearing and fighting and tearing, and by God, at the very end of it, Finn McCool got the better of him. Well, with that, the witch was waiting on her son to come home, because he'd only go over and burn the castle and come home for his dinner then. And there was no sign of him coming back, so she sent her second son. And he had the head of an eagle. And she said, you go off and destroy the castle and bring your brother home with you. And he arrived there with his torches, and he was going to burn the castle. And Finn McCool said, hold on now, boy. Don't you be touching this castle. And the second brother went at him, and they had a huge row again. And Finn McCool got the better of him. Well, the third fella, he had a head of a cat. And he went over, the mother sent him over, and there was bedlam altogether. They were fighting. 'Twas like the Colin McGregor, or whatever his name is. And they were tearing at each other anyway. And Finn McCool just about got the better of him. But the old lady was sick of waiting, and the dinner was getting cold. So she went over with her torches. And if she did, she started throwing the torches at Finn McCool, and he was getting burnt, and poor Bran was getting singed as well. She was throwing them every left, right, and centre. And Finn McCool, Bran just went, "At my last breath, if it's my last breath, will you suck your thumb and find out what to do?" And he started sucking his thumb, and he realised that the only way that would save him, that would kill the sons, and that would cure him from his ailments, was the blood of the witch herself. So he drove at her, and he gave one crack, and he took the head off the witch. And if he did, he collected all her blood, and he was able to kill the 3 lads, and he was able to save himself. So he went to the king to get his prize, the princess, a hand in marriage. And the king said, "You've one more job to do now. All the lads that were killed, that were trying to protect the castle, they're down in the dungeon, their bodies, and you have to take the heads off them." And he went down, he started sucking his thumb. And he realised that he would have he could bring him back to life with the witch's blood that he'd collected. So he went back up to the king and he said, "You know something? I don't want the princess's hand in marriage at all, but could I have the bodies of these soldiers down here?" "Oh, you can, of course, take the heads off them, and you can do what you want with them." But he went down, he didn't take the heads off them. He rubbed the witch's blood on them, and they all came alive. And he then had his own army, and they were called the Fianna, and they went off and they took his kingdom back off his grandfather, and they had got that kingdom now as well, and they more or less started running Ireland, and they protected it as well. And that's the birth of Finn McCool and the start of the Fianna. Whew. So that was my first time telling that story, and it was really good. As again, there's lots of other versions. There's lots of other. I know there was something about, and I must look it up again in my books. There's a story about Finn McCool's father, and Finn McCool was hidden as well. It's lovely to see stories. It's a bit like gossiping in a way, how stories can get changed, and they'll bring something else in there with them. Do you know, they'll bring another bit in there. Oh, Ruby, oh girl, Ruby. So yes, we have an exciting week ahead. I won't say anything. I've been telling the patrons. The Patreon page is there. Please feel free to join up. You could join for €5 a month. And it's very easy. You just put in your bank details. I'm not going to take 2,000 off you or sell your house or anything like that. You just pay a £5 a month to support the goats and the wiring and the feeding, and me and the feeding and the wiring for me. And it does make a difference. And we had a Zoom call last week now with the patrons, and that was really, really lovely, getting to know each other. And it's like a small little family. So we have one again now scheduled for Sunday at 5 p.m, 5 in the afternoon, in the evening. And it's a nice way. It was great chatting. God, I was wondering, would we chat at all? And I think we nearly chatted for 45 minutes, if not an hour. And I had to go because we had to go milking. That's right. Oh, who's down on top of me? Who's this one now? Oh, this is Bliss again. You're some devil, you know something. Look at this. Look at this. That's goat yoga for you. You'd nearly want a chiropractor after the goat yoga. You would. Now, so, I'm trying to see the time. Oh, very good. That was a longer story, but it was quite nice. And again, that was my first time telling that story. And again, it's always a bit, you have to kind of, I read the story, I kind of imprint it. And then when I'm telling it, but once I have it told once, it's kind of easier from there on in, because it's kind of gone into the vault. Hopefully, well, the vault is getting more sparse as time goes on, as I get older. That's it. Now, I've made a list of things I need to get done today, and I am going to stick to that list. And if I get those things done, I will be a very happy man, and I'll talk to you in the morning again. Timple Fehano me Taresh a Hocht, around 20 minutes past 8. I might only be going down. I might have a little sleep in. Look at that. God almighty, if you were inside in the bed, there wouldn't be much sleepless. And who's on this side of me now? That's Joy. Oh, look at this. Bliss and Joy, you're gone mad altogether. You've no mercy on me. You've no mercy. You've no mercy. I tell you something. People were saying I should open a pet farm. If I did, you'd want a serious insurance with this crowd. You would. The goat yoga, the goat yoga, the goat yoga is more like WWF. Now, have a lovely weekend. It's the long weekend. I hope you have a very nice time and things are opening up. Is it or are they? I think they are. I think that people are getting ready to socialise. So I don't know what you'd call this, go-to-lise. I'm go-to-lising all the time. Look at that for dramatic clouds now behind it. If I had time, I'd do a painting every day. Look at that. Look at the Payne's grey and the white. Oh, that's beautiful. And the green then here. Look, the sap green of the Rahanach, as we'd say. Wouldn't you eat the Rahanach rather than my hood? More no line. Now, Slán and Ishkak, the long goodbye is going on. Look at that. Don't leave me here. Have a lovely weekend. Slán and Ishkak.